Good afternoon, good morning to some of you, good evening to others. Very warm welcome to this TM Forum and Conviva webinar, Exploiting Social Media Data Across the Customer Lifecycle. I'm delighted to have with me today Atul Madan. Atul is Chief Operating Officer, Digital Lifestyle Solutions at Conviva, and you probably worked out that I'm Mark Newman. I'm Chief Analyst at TM Forum. So over the next hour, I will be giving a brief introduction and contextualization to the area of social media data. I'll then hand over to Atul to talk you through how Conviva sees the opportunities for telecoms operators out there today. We have a couple of poll questions, which is where we ask you, our audience, to submit your own answers to questions, and Atul and I will then discuss the questions. If while you're listening to Atul or myself you have any questions, then please feel free to enter them immediately in the Q&A box. I think you should have a button to press on the console you're looking at, which tells you, you click it, you get Q&A, you put in your question, and we'll address the questions towards the end of the session, probably in about 45 minutes or so. The last thing I have to say before moving on to some slides is that we will be sending out a link to a recording of this presentation within the next 24 hours, so you don't need to worry about taking screenshots for any of the slides. You'll get access to them. So when we think about social media data, I think it's important to contextualize social media data and to think about all of the different forms of data that telecoms operators have access to across their whole organization. And so I think that there's two prime forms of data that operators look at. There's what you might bundle in as saying is CRM data. That's data taken from billing records, from call centers, from it may well be from how you interact with an operator online. So that's one part of the equation. And the other part of the equation, I think, is the data around the network. So it could be data around technical issues in the network that need resolving. It could be usage of services, the usage that customers have within the network. Then as well as that, we have data generated on devices which operators might collect via their apps. And then as you can see in the little pinky color cloud, we have third-party data. This is the data we're talking about here is when customers post comments about their services online using Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. So I think we're all familiar with the challenges that operators have, which is it might be around formatting the data, it might be around dirty data, it might be around data governance. There's a lot of issues and challenges, and sometimes getting data moved across different divisions can actually be quite difficult. So it may well be that an operator has good data for its network, which is used for for alarms and for self-healing, for example. But the question often is, can that network data be accessed by the CRM team? So often the challenge is more having data move across from one part of the organization to another. So that's the broad introduction. Just so that you know, we're in the process of researching another report called Delivering Data Across the CSP Organization, and actually have some early results from that. So that's a broad context of, I think, of how telcos use data. So we're now going to ask you our first question, and hopefully it's quite a simple question, and the question is, how important is it for CSPs, for telecoms operators, to make good use of social media data in their business? So you have a range of choices. If you feel it's absolutely essential for the business, you should click the first one. If you think it's not particularly useful, you click the last one. So we'll give you 20 or 30 seconds, and then when you've submitted your views, we'll look at the results. So Atul, do you have where do you think most people will cast their vote?
I would say, looking at the interactions that I've had, I think it is going to be either essential or important, but definitely among these two.
Yeah.
More likely to be essential.
If it's not one of those, then we are in trouble.
Yeah,
so
you're right. And I think
I'll give you another 10 seconds, then we'll look at the answers. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and let's have a look at the answers. So, quite encouraging results, I would say. So 2/3 saying it is essential. So that's good to see, Atul, yeah? There's a recognition.
Yeah, it validates the point that we had, yeah, it does.
Yeah. I think it validates the point. I guess the question is, and this is what you and I will be coming on to, which is operators recognize it's essential. That doesn't necessarily mean they're using it in the best way, and that I think is the main issue that you'll be talking about when it comes over to you, Atul. Okay,
yes,
so I mentioned that we're producing a new piece of research called leveraging data across the CSP organization, and I've taken some early results. There's about 100 telecoms operator responses here, and this is just the executives that sit within an analytics function or people in IT who make heavy use of data. And the idea of this question is to understand, using the red bar, how valuable is the data to your business, and using the gray bar, which is we've been unsuccessful, and the black bar showing we've been relatively successful. So looking through those now, data about your supply chain, so just under 50% see it as being essential. Operators think they've been reasonably successful. Employee needs, similar set of results. Brand and reputation, I guess generally operators will probably use Net Promoter Score for that, I would imagine, but hopefully they're looking at other ways of measuring brand and reputation. And I think the more interesting ones are around network data. Interestingly, on the network data, it's seen as being essential, and most operators think that they've been pretty successful in collecting network data. I think the issue, as I mentioned before, is are operators using that network data for their services, for the CRM, or is it just being used for network by network? Social media will come onto the next slide, and then data about customer preferences, clearly extremely valuable, and operators think they're doing a reasonable job. So yes, there is some gap, I think, between the reds and the black, but not too big a gap. Now, if we look specifically at social media data. So this is just taking those answers for social media, and as we can see from this slide, just under 1 in 3 in our survey thought it would be extremely valuable to their business, which is a lot less than the poll question that we've just done, which is kind of interesting. I personally was amazed the figure was this low, and I'll show you why in a minute. I mean, it's certainly in my mind, if you do not use social media data, that's an extremely valuable input into your business you're missing out. In terms of relative success, as you can see by this, just over 40% of operators think they've been relatively successful, and about 35% think they've been relatively unsuccessful. I don't know what happened to the other 25%, but it's interesting. So what this says to me is that the use of social media data is not as sophisticated, is not as advanced as the use of CRM data more broadly and of network data. And that's precisely, I think, why, certainly why we and why Conviva think that it's an opportunity out there for us to exploit. So one of the reasons why I certainly think it's essential for operators to use social media data is that operators are not generating a significant amount of feedback via their own digital channels. And so when we talk about digital channels, we talk about a portal, we might talk about a chatbot, we're probably talking about a mobile app. And most operators have rolled out a mobile app. They're continuously looking to improve their mobile apps. But in terms of how people use their mobile apps, and I'm talking about the operator's own mobile apps, it's very rare to find customers who use the mobile app for a full set of requirements. Generally, people use the mobile apps to check their credit, check how much data is left. But there aren't many people who make regular use of the data app, and because of that, operators are not collecting a huge amount of insight and data back from their apps. Now, I guess one way that you could do this is to incentivize people to use your app more. And I think there are examples of operators that give you a reward if you make good use of their app. The screenshot actually is an example of an operator, a Russian operator group called Vion, which invested quite heavily in building, in making its app into an information and entertainment portal, as well as being a CRM portal. And so they had quite ambitious plans. I think the challenge that they had with their app was that it was very much a centralized approach, and their markets are quite diverse. And I think they found that maybe some of the regional tastes and preferences were not properly catered for by their app. So the big message here, operators could collect good data via their mobile apps, but because the mobile apps aren't really used enough, they're missing out on that opportunity. I think this is a screenshot, and I doubt you can read the print here. But I would imagine that a lot of you do this, which is that if you go onto Twitter and you search for your local operator, you get a huge number of entries. I did this a couple of days ago. So this was a couple of local operators, Virgin Media and O2. So I typed Virgin Media into Twitter, and you get 10, 20, 30, 40 comments from customers that have all come in a few minutes, and they give you great insight. So in this case, it's talking about loyalty programs and whether loyal customers are rewarded in the same way as new customers. That's quite a big complaint that people have, certainly in the UK. And the point I think to make about social media is that generally opinions tend to be very, very strong. So opinions can be quite critical, which is obviously bad to an operator reputation. But if as an operator you properly use a social media channel, it can be of huge value to your brand. So to give you an example, when I see operators who have strong loyalty programs and they send out birthday cards or an occasional present or a discount to their customers, you get a fantastic set of feedback from customers, which justifies that investment. So I think that proactive usage is very important. Most I think of what we see in social media today is operators reacting to customers rather than being proactive in terms of managing their customers, which I think is a very important point. So just the last couple of slides. So this is a TM Forum graphic showing you the whole customer life cycle, all the way from engagement, from when you first realize a need to buy a new telecom service, all the way through engagement, through purchase, through usage, and then through re-evaluation and a decision about whether to stay with your service provider or whether to move somewhere else. So it's interesting to think about when it comes to operators and social media today, where are operators most proactive in terms of using social media? And I think, as we all know, they're most active in that engagement section. So operators, they certainly use those social channels to promote their services. So it's very much at the start of the cycle. I don't think we see operators taking proactive strategies throughout the usage and the evaluation parts of the life cycle, which is quite important. I think, as we know, all operators are seeking to move away from customer relationships which are focused at the start or the end of the contract, and to have more sort of 365-day customer life cycle management. So I hope that just gives some interesting context and pointers. I'm now going to hand you over to Atul, who's going to talk you through some of these issues in more detail and give you some context around transformation more broadly. So over to you, Atul.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks a lot. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon where you are. So before I get into my slides, there's another interesting point which I was looking at when I was looking at the slides which Mark was presenting about operators feeling that they know enough about customers and they know enough about the data of the customers. But today's Gen Z or millennials, they don't want they want you to engage with them on the platform of their choice. So their platform of their choice, unfortunately, has really shifted today from the traditional networks to the new age social media platforms. So the expectation with the Gen Z today is, if you really want to engage with them, come and join them there, interface with them there, interact with them there, understand them better, and only then we can deliver them the right kind of services that they are expecting. So I think there's a generational shift that has happened in last 15, 20 years. 20 years ago, this was not the case, but today the whole scenario has changed. So it is very, very critical in our opinion to be able to reach out to the customers on the platform which they use, the mediums they prefer. If we don't do that, we are missing out on not only understanding of the customers, but also being able to fine-tune our offerings as per their needs. So I'll just move on to the next slide, which broadly talks about the agenda that we have for rest of the presentation, whether it's about how does the evolution of CSP to DSP look like, what could be the business drivers for digital transformation, how does social media impact digital BSS systems, and when you have digital BSS system, you honestly need to have a lot of digital service partners onboarded. And when you onboard them, how does it impact the network systems, the BSS systems in an operator's environment? How does the new architecture after digital transformation look like? What are the interfaces? What are the changes that we expect? And then there's a very, very brief case study as to what our experience has been. We've just picked one of the case studies. So if we look at the digital shift today, and if you look at the left-hand side of the slide, there is a traditional, there are a few elements out there. So traditional to traditional, digital to traditional, traditional to digital, digital to digital. What it means is the origination of a transaction from a consumer and termination and the completion of that transaction. So if you look at it, traditional this thing wherein the consumer starts the transaction on the traditional medium and ends the transaction on traditional medium, the customer satisfaction level, what we have seen, then this is a McKinsey study, the customer satisfaction levels that we see is around 57%. And while if you look at the bottom half of the slide, you see digital, if the transactions are started on the digital platforms and completed on digital platforms, there's a clear shift in terms of customer satisfaction. So it jumps from 57% in completely traditional mode to 76% in completely digital mode. So what we can very clearly see is today's consumers prefer to engage with the service providers on the digital platforms. And if you see overall, if you see there is something called share of transactions, and today if we see in a typical operator that only traditional transactions, they have only 11% of the share today, and only digital have around 15% of the share today. And that's where what we see is there's a clear opportunity for all of us to work on to improve the percentage share of the transactions and move them towards digital to digital, because there's a clear correlation that is there between increasing the digital transactions and improving the customer satisfaction. So that's where what we believe is very, very important to have a digital transformation strategy in place. What we believe is it not only helps bring in higher CSAT, but it also helps in increasing the consumption, and it also helps in reducing the CapEx and OpEx, because the more you move towards digital environment, your resource requirements, your process ease, and all of those things actually end up in resulting. They all end up in reducing the capex and opex needs. Now, if we look at the typical customer journey from discovery to acquisition to fulfillment to servicing to retention, these are typical life cycle activities of a consumer that we have on our networks. If you look at the top half of the slide, which is the traditional, wherein for discovery, customers who are typically using SMS, IVR. From there, after they have discovered the service, they would go to a retail shop or go to a website. From there, try and opt in for the service. Then probably they need to do their KYC things completed, for which they may have to they actually had to go and meet the retailers and actually present their documents and all those things. And then they were actually able to use the service. And then you used traditional mediums for churn management to improve loyalty. But while if we look at the lower half of the slide, which is around the digital transformation, how does the whole landscape change when the digital transformation happens? Today, customers are discovering their services on social media platforms. And what we have seen is OTT players have been able to quite interestingly and quite innovatively they have been able to use the social media platforms quite effectively. And the moment customers are able to discover their services there, then you can use marketplace models or multi-channel campaign systems to be able to acquire those customers. So this is a completely new ecosystem which is emerging for operators to be able to acquire customers. And then even the servicing and the fulfillment part, if it is, let's say, a physical device which needs to be provided as a customer has bought in, customer can today opt in for eKYCs, and instead of customer actually walking into a retail store, the service can be delivered, or the product can be delivered to customer at his place. So there's a clear shift that we see out there as well. Now, as far as customer service is concerned, using analytics, chatbots, and voice assistants are actually becoming quite prevalent, though it's still, I would say, is still in experimental stages in many countries, but we see increasing usage of these new means of communicating with customers, and it not only improves the customer satisfaction, but it reduces the cost, because chatbots and voice assistants actually reduce the need for conventional call centers, thereby improving on your OPEX, as well as lesser cost spent on educating or training the customer care staff. And of course, increasingly AI/ML is being used to be able to understand the consumers better, offer them the right services and products to be able to retain them better. Okay, there seems to be another poll here today. Mark, would you like to talk about it?
Yeah. So this is, again, it should be quite a straightforward poll. So the question today is, it's a broader question about how successful you believe operators are today in exploiting digital channels. So we're talking here about whether operators are making good use, for example, of mobile apps, of chatbots, of portals more broadly. So we give you an option all the way from being very successful down to the bottom to very unsuccessful. So we'll give you 25, 30 seconds to decide which one to pick. It's simple. Just pick one answer, and then Atul and I will discuss. So would you hazard a guess, Atul, at where we'll see most people submitting their replies here? My feeling is we're going to see, I'm just guessing here, that the middle one's going to be fairly popular, I would imagine.
Absolutely. I was also going to say the same thing. Yeah, I was also going to say the same thing. Yeah.
But we don't want to influence you, everybody. So if you have a different opinion from me and Atul, then please don't let us influence you. So if you want to say they've been very successful, then you're very, very welcome to do that. So just another 5 seconds. We'll take a look. Okay, let's take a look now. So, on balance, it seems as if there's more people have said reasonably successful than reasonably unsuccessful. So yes, I mean, you and I haven't discussed this at all, but you know, do you share my views here, which is that most operators are aware that they need to build stronger digital interfaces, but they're struggling to find ways to capture all of the touch points that their customers need.
I think I would broadly agree with you, Mark, and I think the point out there is the digital transformation initiative, the way it has been projected, it's kind of unnerving for the CFOs of the organization as well as the operating team. And I think that's one legwork that needs to be done, that what kind of real benefits, because CFOs only see the costs, and probably the operating team sees there's a lot of disruption, and why get into something when something else is not broken. So I think that's probably is a kind of a showstopper today.
Yeah. Okay, and I think it's interesting also when you compare, let's say, the banking industry with the telecoms industry, and I think in many cases banks have overtaken telcos, and my impression is that people make more use of their banking app than they do their mobile phone app. And maybe that's simply because you have more transactions with a bank than you do a telco, but I think there's maybe another issue here, Atul, which may well be that in the world of banking, I think there's a proactive drive to reduce the number of physical banks, and it's clearly part of that strategy. Whereas I think in telco, that's not always the case. In many cases, telcos want to retain multiple routes to market and a strong retail presence, but they also want to get people to use digital channels more. So they want to do both things.
Yeah, you are right. You are absolutely right. But I would say the way we have traditionally understood the telco system, where you had calling and SMS, but today's, if I look at it, it's not just a telecom system. It's all-encompassing communication system, wherein you have the OTT guys also playing a role. So if we look at overall system, I think maybe telcos have been a bit slower, but OTT guys have really used those digital interfaces much more than telco environment.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so I'm going to hand back to you now, Atul.
Okay, thanks, Mark. So if we look at what kind of strategies which operators have adopted around the globe for digital transformation, and what we can very clearly see is there are 5 different tracks people have taken. Some of the operators have taken the full Big Bang approach, wherein they have worked with SI partners and to ensure that the whole digital transformation process is initiated and is completed in 2 years' time or so. So some of the operators, Tier 1 operators in Asia, have really gone ahead with that kind of an approach. Similarly, for greenfield operators anyway, because they did not carry any legacy, so they had no qualms about going ahead with fully digital stack. If we look at another set of operators, wherein what they have done is they did not want to kind of touch their legacy infrastructure, which was already there, and they had sunk in a lot of cost there. So what they did, they went in for an overlay network, which actually allowed them to use the legacy infrastructure, but as far as their interfacing towards consumers was concerned, or towards their digital service partners was concerned, that overlay layer actually helped them achieve that thing, but with certain, I would say, operational inefficiencies, but they were able to achieve it that way. And quite a few of operators have actually taken this add-on system kind of approach, which is an overlay layered on the legacy stuff. Some of the operators have, instead of going in for full Big Bang approach of replacing every BSS system in their network, they have actually gone in with phased approach, where depending upon the kind of needs this organization identified, whether it was a business need or whether it was an operational efficiency need or whether it was a CSAT need, depending upon which need they had highest, they opted in for that particular stack of the BSS to be transformed first for digital environment. So it was more like a phased approach, where they decided, okay, we'll pick one of the elements of the digital transformation, will not go full steam on the whole thing. And last approach is also becoming quite interesting, and quite a few operators are adopting it, because digital transformation as such, there is no end to it. It's a continuous process, and there are quite a few unknowns which operators and the ecosystem expects will be there. So the approach these people have taken is kind of a co-development approach, wherein we work together, operators and vendors have decided to work together, look at the DevOps kind of methodologies to understand the needs in a real environment, and work together in a collaborative way to be able to kind of slowly transform their legacy systems to digital systems. So that is another approach, which is a co-development approach that some of the operators have taken. Now, if we look at the business drivers for digital transformation, you see we have divided this slide into two halves. One is the business problem, and second is the technology advancement. So if you look at the business problem, so today everybody wants to increase the channels of reaching out to their customers for improving the sales. Second business problem people are looking at is, how do I have better insights of my consumers? Because we will talk about it in few slides down the line, wherein what additional information or insights can we generate using new age systems. And then looking at social media, the KPIs, the traditional KPIs that we were using. Now, social media has brought in a lot of new KPIs that can be used to understand customers better, to identify service mix gaps, and be able to offer those services which fall into those gaps. So I think fine-tuning of KPIs based on social media analysis to be able to find next levers of growth is a very, very critical issue which operators are struggling with. Next is the business process or technology process or the technical process automations, wherein let's say usage of RPAs to be able to optimize and deliver a better consumer experience is becoming critical. Another thing which is around the leveraging new technologies, because whether it is IoT, smart devices, or let's say social media, some of these things, how these new technologies are impacting operators' ecosystem, whether they can coexist, or if they have to coexist, how do they coexist in the telco environment, and what value adds can be brought in, is another business problem which operators are trying to tackle. And of course, increasing the customer reach is another important factor which is always there, be it a legacy environment or be it the digital environment. Now, if we look at the technology advancements that we need to be aware of or we need to take cognizance of, are how do I enable social media in my ecosystem to understand my consumers better, to reach out to them better, to engage with them better? How do I work with more and more digital partners? Because today if we see, OTT players are taking away a lot of services from the traditional telco environment, and they are able to provide a lot of services, and they're being smaller with less investments in capex. They are more cost effective, more agile. So how do we really work together to create a win-win situation along with the OTT players? Then, of course, as I spoke about the RPAs, which is very, very critical for us to be able to bring in operational efficiency, which not only helps in reducing capex investments, but also helps in reducing OPEX going forward. Now, today, if you see, the traditional sales and distribution channels also have undergone dramatic changes because of the technology advancements, whether you use geofencing, Google Maps, and all those things to be able to get real-time information, to be able to have more robust supply chain management, to be able to manage your inventory much better in real-time forecasting and settlement with your partners. All these things are now possible using advancement in technology for your sales and distribution networks as well. Of course, IoT is another area which people have started exploring now, though I won't say that this is something which people have been able to clearly identify how to monetize the impact of how to monetize IoT in their environment, but this is something which we have to figure a way out, because this is there and this is not going to go away. And the last thing is, because there are ambiguities, not complete understanding of how the digital ecosystem is going to evolve over the years. So collaborative approach with the vendors, with the partners is going to be very, very critical. How do you introduce new services faster? How do you validate? How do you test them faster? And how do you launch them faster is an important aspect today that is there, while on the other side, protecting your CapEx and OpEx investments. So if we have to address all of these things, I think DevOps is going to play a very, very critical role going forward. Now, if we look at what is the impact of social media on different BSS modules or BSS systems, before that, let's talk about what is it that I can do, what is it that social media gives me today. Now, there's a lot of data which you can generate from social media, or which social media is generating, which can be used. How are people responding to the links that I am sending to them, or what kind of things they are clicking on? How are they responding to the tweets that I, as a telco, I'm sending, or I'm tweeting about my services? How are they responding to that? Are they retweeting? Are they liking? Are they disliking? What kind of hashtags and mentions do they use specifically when they are talking about me as an operator? How do I really get a quick poll done on social media to understand if I want to launch some new service? How do I get a quick reaction from my consumers to be able to figure out to be able to figure out should I be launching these services or should I be modifying some of these services? What kind of tagging are they doing? How are they responding to my Insta stories? What is it that they're liking and sharing? Who are the people who are following me? Who are the people who are following them? So there's a lot of data which is available in the social media networks. Now, using this data, we can actually do a lot of sentiment analysis to be able to understand how satisfied our customers are today. From their data, we can identify what kind of services people prefer. What kind of services should we be launching based on the gap analysis that we can derive from social media preferences of the people. Then we can always have if I want to launch some services, can I really figure out where do I launch? I can have locational preferences. I can have time preferences of the consumers. So I can understand my consumers in terms of their social networks. So who are the influencers? Who are my promoters? How do I engage with them better? Because it's very, very critical for us as the telco community to be able to identify the people who can be our promoters, who can really help us take our services to larger set of audience, and how do we engage with them is going to be very, very important. Now, as I was talking about the new set of KPIs which are emerging because of usage of social media today. Now, social media throws up large number of new KPIs which can be used to understand how are people consuming my services. Are people really happy with my services? How are they? What kind of app reviews I am getting? What kind of retweets I am getting? What kind of downloads I am getting? What kind of shares I am getting? So you can have all this information available in the social media environment to be able to understand are our consumers really happy? How are they responding to the quality of service? So based on their responses about our services, we can actually identify what is the quality of the service that we have. Are people liking the quality or they are not liking the quality? A lot of KPIs available on social media can help us in deciding our retention strategies. It can also help us in understanding what kind of services people are adopting. It can also, and one of the most important things is, it helps us in engaging with those people. And the more we are able to engage with our consumers, the better we understand them and better we can fine tune our services. So that's very, very critical. Okay, so I'll move to the next slide. Now, after this basic things around KPIs and the transformation strategies, at the end of the day, the question is, is there really a use case for me to be able to justify my investments in overall digital transformation? So what we believe is, if you look at it from various angles, be it your CRM systems, be it your product cataloging and offers, or subscription systems, sales and distribution, POS, there are clear use cases that can be there for us to be able to kind of identify what services or what transformation we need to undergo. We may not need to undergo the complete transformation, but if we have to go for transformation in phases, then what are the use cases that will be possible under different heads? So if I look at CRM, can I use my CRM to be able to understand my consumers better? So I can crowdsource some of those things. I can actually use location-based targeted campaigns using these systems. So because I may not want to launch everything everywhere, so location-based service launches or offer launches becomes very, very critical. Before even I go ahead and launch a new service, can I really create a buzz around that service? That's another important aspect. Problem management or complaint management of the customers. So how do today's consumers, if you see, whenever they complain, they may not call up a call center. They actually just tweet about it, or they just write on Facebook about it. How do I really engage with them to be able to understand what are they complaining about? Can I actually address their complaints on the same media on which they are complaining? It's going to be very, very critical. I can use CRM for sentiment analysis, which will help me in positioning my services much better. And another important aspect is, can I use my CRM systems along with social media to be able to generate leads? Because depending upon what people are liking, what they are tweeting or what they are retweeting, what they are sharing, I can actually create leads from there. I can create time-based campaigns from there. If I look at different kinds of product catalogs or commercial catalogs and offers, I can actually create multiple use cases around that also. How do I link my commercial catalogs with the social media ads? How can I create offer and also undergo A/B testing on those offers or services before I actually go full steam on launch of those services? How can I upsell using social media? How can I manage large number of digital service partners? How can I address large number of digital service partners and create a kind of bundled service package which can be offered to customers? How do I manage subscription lifecycle through social media? Or how do I, even in, let's say in sales and distribution environment, how do I train my workforce which is there in the field? Today, the traditional mediums are very slow and they are prone to errors. So can I leverage social media? Let's say I create videos around my products and train my field force around those things. Or can I actually create educational videos for my consumers to be able to understand the service before they actually opt in for the service? Then, of course, boosting the posts is a standard thing that can be done around social media. And then, can I also use social media for my sales forecasting? That's another business use case that can be there. Now, if I look at the POS systems, how can I identify customers who are nearby through digital marketing campaigns? Can I really use this thing for my inventory optimization? So there can be multiple use cases that can be built around usage of social media and digitalization of BSS stack. Now, another thing is around digital partners. As we know today, a large number of digital services partners are joining the telco environment to be able to offer their services to customers. Now, when they come on board, what are important factors that we need to keep in mind? The more and more partners who come on board, how can I create a product catalog? Product catalog management becomes very, very important out there, whether it is the physical goods or the virtual services or the digital services that need to be provided. How do I address that aspect? The more the partners, the more complex service offering becomes. How can I create bundles and offers in such a way which are easily understandable by customers? With new and new partners coming in, what kind of new business models can be evolved around the systems? How do I onboard these partners faster? Can I create these processes automate these processes for online registration of partners? Then how do I get more insights into customers' preferences to be able to identify right kind of partners to be brought on board? How do I, when I bring in a partner, how can I speed up the process of onboarding by bringing in sandbox testing? Eventually, at the end of the day, there needs to be a reconciliation and settlement with the partners. Can I create processes which allow me to do this process effectively, faster, and reducing the errors in the whole process? And then, of course, for most of these things, how do I use TM Forum APIs to be able to kind of provide these services and standardize these offerings or APIs with the partners to reduce the probability of errors and delays? Okay. Now, if I look at what kind of use cases can be there in OTT space. Now, first is how do I onboard these partners in seamless way? How do I create various rules for these partners to be onboarded much faster? Another area is how do I manage my contracts and agreements with these partners? Next is the number of partners who come on board. How do I use a large number of partners for my service creation for different types of services that I may need to create? How do I define service points? How do I bundle my services? How do I create offers around these things? Then the moment these partners are to be onboarded, how do I actually speed up the onboarding process? How do I automate my test cases? How do I create it in such a way wherein there is no understanding gap between the telco BSS systems and partners' own applications or services, reduce the kind of opacity there, or make it more and more transparent and make it more understandable for partners to be onboarded easily. And eventually, how do I reconcile and settle with those partners? So all of these things are going to be very, very critical use cases when we have to bring in digital service partners on board. Okay, if we see, I will not go in detail of this slide, but if we see the traditional approach of partner onboarding is the moment we were trying to onboard partner, there has to be a registration process, then you share APIs with them, then there are confusions, you write emails, you get into phone calls, then you have long Q&A sessions, and then finally both the sides need to do some development, and you undergo testing, and then you eventually go live. So what we have typically seen is even in the most efficient systems, it typically takes around 23 to 25 working days to be able to launch one service. But if we go with the online process and use TM Forum APIs, what we have seen is we can dramatically cut down on this time and by almost 50%, and we can actually go ahead and launch these services in flat 11 days. That has been our experience in various places where we have worked. So you need to really make use of partner management APIs, agreement management APIs, product catalog management, and test management. I think if we do these things, these can help us reduce the time dramatically into almost by 50%, and we are able to launch our services at a much faster pace. Okay, now this is just a brief slide on how does the new stack look like, what are the new interfaces which will come in the stack. On the left hand side, what we are looking at is today, if you see, most of the services, when we think of digital, on the digital service partner side, what we look at is the top thing, which is the entertainment. But if you see, slowly and steadily, more and more industry verticals are joining in. So banks have already been there. education is coming in, but what we also believe is healthcare, insurance, and commerce. Some of the operators have actually started working on e-commerce platforms in various forms and shapes to be able to offer these to retailers to enable them to reach out to their customer base. So different types of industry verticals are joining in. So how do you really support all these different industry verticals? Any BSS system has to be able to address the challenges which come in because of the introduction of different verticals. On the other side, how do you really reach out to your consumers who are using different mediums today? As I said in the beginning itself, today consumers don't want us to interact with them, engage with them on traditional SMS or IVR. They want us to be with them on their social media platforms or the platforms they today typically use. So how do I create interfaces towards those platforms to be able to engage with them seamlessly? Now, there's just one, as a last slide, there's just one case study which I am talking about, wherein we are working with an operator in Middle East, wherein we were given the task of not only bringing in the technology stack, but we were also given the task of identifying service gaps, work with the operator, work with the digital service partners, bring them on board based on the service gaps. And also ensuring higher CSAT. These are the objectives given to us, and when we worked with them, or we have been working with quite a few of them, and in this case we have been working with them almost for 2 years or so, we have been able to reduce the churn by 33%, which is a good indicator of high CSAT. And we have also been able to increase their revenue almost 18%. It was done in, I think it was done in less than a year, where we saw more than 18% growth on the revenue stream with 27% new activations. So, but to achieve all of these things, we really needed to identify what are the building blocks that will be required there, what kind of services need to be brought in based on consumer understanding, and that's how we were able to actually deliver value to our customers. So thank you very much for your time, and any questions?
Thank you very much, Atul. Thank you, Atul. So I see a couple of questions coming in. If anybody has any questions, then please use the console. So that was great, Atul. So when I hear you speak, the idea of using social media more proactively seems like a pretty obvious thing to do in terms of benefits and upsides. What do you think are the main issues that have held operators back from properly leveraging social media data today?
Okay, Mark, in my opinion, and I'll be very happy to hear if there's any other opinion, my opinion, there are 2-3 things. One is, the way the transformation has happened towards the social media, it has been very, very rapid over the last few years. And whether we like it or not, but as telco players, the agility part is not always one of the pluses that telcos have. So what I see, the rest of the industry, the other aspect has moved faster than telcos have been able to react to. That is one. Second is, I still don't see that the collaboration element is enough between telcos and the social media platforms. And maybe both the sides really first want to see how does it benefit them. So maybe that is another area which I think that has to be addressed, because if both, in my opinion, if both telcos and the social media platforms work collaboratively, it can be beneficial for everybody in the ecosystem.
So do you think also the element of integrating the systems with legacy systems? So it's like any other aspect of transformation. It's how you integrate these new capabilities with your legacy systems where it gets complicated. And do you think that's been a major issue, the complication, how to do this?
Yes, it is fairly complicated from that point of view, and yes, as I said, it is not that the same organization structure can address new age challenges. And typically, if we have to look at some of these aspects, So, of course, over the last 2-3 years, telcos have started creating separate digital enablement teams and under chief digital officers and senior level people. But I still don't think they have enough budget available, because this is not something which can be done by one arm or one unit of the telco.
Yes.
It impacts practically every wing in the telco environment. So
that's actually the question that I was going to ask you. My next question was going to be, having listened to you, if I want to capture all the opportunities that you've outlined today, where do I need to make the investment in my organization?
I would say there are two places where I would say the initiation probably will have to happen. If we specifically look at the social media aspect of it, I'm not touching the process automation or RPS, because that's a optimization part which probably will start with the CIO. But if I look at the social media aspects of things, probably initiation should happen from the CMO organization. Of course, then it has to be taken forward by the CIO organization to be able to actually identify the right solutions for their ecosystem, and that's how I would see.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just picking up one of the questions here. Can you share a real-life example where a telco has launched new digital service? Well, the question is via social media listening, but I think the question is saying an example of where an operator has taken feedback, I guess, using social media to launch a new service. Do you have any examples of that?
Yes, obviously I can't name the operators without their permission, but in Middle East we have seen at least 2 places wherein operators have used social media feeds to identify service gaps. And then, of course, based on those service gaps, then new partners were identified, onboarded. But that has been done in case of few services. So I would say in one of the cases, I think it was, if I'm not wrong, I think it was around some kind of women fashion, and that seems quite very different from our real understanding of Middle Eastern environment. But the women fashion was a very interesting insight that came in.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I have a question here. This, I think, is a broader question around transformation. The question is, what ought to be the top 3 priorities of an MSO team in the journey to becoming a successful digital operator? That's quite a big question, isn't it, Atul?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say
that's a tough question.
Yeah, it is. And actually, my answer to that would be, as a telco, we really need to first understand what is my key objective. When I'm going in for digital transformation, what is the key driver for me? Is it the operational efficiency that I'm looking at?
Yes, exactly.
Is it revenue enhancement that I'm looking at? What are those weak spots or opportunities which I am looking for? So based on that, the answer can be
I totally agree with you. Yes, I totally agree with you. I know when I look at transformation, I think the goals are better customer experience, incremental revenues, operational efficiency. So when I think about the benefits of social media, my expectation would be the number 1 benefit is a better customer experience. Deriving incremental revenues is probably second to that, would be my thinking. Would you agree with that?
I do.
Yeah. Okay, good. So I think we'll wrap up. So I know it's just coming up to the hour. So thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions for Atul or for myself, our details will be on the slides when we send around the link to you. So thanks for your time today, and we hope to speak to you again soon. Thank you very much, Atul, and we shall speak again soon.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.